Hey, welcome to Coffee with Tyler, the show where we talk about banjo, all things banjo, really, with banjo players from across the globe. We pick their brains a little bit, learn a little bit more about them. Today, talking to the super talented Andy Eastwood, who's probably most known for his banjo ukulele playing. Since we're a banjo museum, that's probably what we're going to focus on the most today. So, Andy, thanks so much for being here.
It's really great to see you. Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah, man. Thanks for doing this. I'm excited about this just because I started on the ukulele, and one of my first memories was reading through a ukulele instruction book, and they had different types of ukuleles, like baritone and, soprano size, concert, all that stuff. And then there's a banjo ukulele, and it instantly caught my eye, and I thought, oh, that's cool. So anyways, how did you get started in, music in general, but specifically the banjo ukulele, and what age were you?
Well, this goes way back as far as I can remember. My granddad used to play a banjolele, a ukulele banjo or a banjolele, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
He used to play to me when I was a tiny kid. I'm talking about, I think there's a photograph of me with one at the age of about 18 months old. So I'm going that far back. So
Wow.
He used to play to me comic songs, vaudeville songs, country songs, any old songs. He always with the uke or a banjolele. So I really have it as my earliest memory. So he died when I was 6. My granddad died when I was 6. Just before he died, he gave me a very cheap uke, almost a toy really, and that's where it comes from. So it's been with me that long. I've started to play it properly maybe when I was about 8, something like that.
Okay, cool. Now, where was this? Where were you living then?
This is Lancashire, the north of England.
North of, okay,
I'm
gotcha.
talking about, the place where this guy came from. This here is a picture
Mr. Formby.
Oh yeah, George Formby was from Lancashire himself, and he, I guess a lot of people in the States are not aware of him, but over here, even today, if you talk about ukuleles, a lot of people associate it with George Formby because he became a movie star in the 30s and 40s, and he had the ukulele banjo as his trademark. So he was quite a great player of it, one of the real legendary players. Not so well known in the States, but even to this day over here, always associated with the uke.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I've run across, I'm a little weird because I'm a banjo nerd, but I've run across a lot of hilarious bits, from the 30s and 40s, black and white,
right,
of him. And it's so funny to me that he was such a great comedian, actor, but also obviously a brilliant musician, and the technique, the right hand thing. Now, well, might as well just kind of dive into that a little bit since we're on the subject.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain, what makes that Formby style so unique and different from the average just kind of strum? There seems to be several different things you do that are amazing.
Yeah, I can give you a little version of it. Yeah. So what he does really, it's a syncopated stroke that he does, because we're talking about the jazz age. Obviously, he started playing the uke in the mid-20s. In fact, I have a picture on the wall here. I'll get it.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
I wonder if you can see this. There's George Formby with a banjolele. He signed that picture. It's a bit dark, but it says 1925, and that really illustrates what a pioneer he was, because as you probably know, the ukulele banjo was only patented in 1917. So he's really up there in the pioneering wave of uke players. So what he did was a jazzy syncopated stroke. So if you think of a bar of music chopped up into eighth notes, he would get the emphasis off the beat by, instead of going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, he would go down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. Okay, so then you've got the the accent off the beat. Or, you know, you split it into a little group of 3, down, up, down, and then repeat it, down, up, down, down, up, down. Suddenly you've got the accent off the beat. So he would get some real nice jazzy rhythms like that. Then he would do the same thing, but open the hand up like a roll, like a fan. So I will play a bit of music at the end of this, because I know the audio isn't great on Zoom, but
right.
I just do a... You get a nice syncopated effect. It's all a rhythmic stroke, really. Didn't do anything too flashy with the left hand, but the rhythm was fantastic.
Oh yeah, no, that's great, man. Let's see, the first time I was exposed to this, and just, you know, a quick little background on me. I'm primarily a tenor banjo player, tenor and plectrum, 4-string, and so I've been around in America a lot of the festivals, little gatherings we have every year. When I was a kid, probably 13 or 14, a guy came over named Peter Moss.
Oh yeah.
Do you know him? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And he was playing I think maybe a Ludwig Wendell Hall or something, and doing that stroke. And that's the first time I saw. Hey, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with the the tulip flange. Cool. Yeah, and that was my first exposure to that. And he did a lot of that stroke, that style. I didn't know anything about really at that age George Formby, but that's what kind of got me curious about it. So, anyways, I found that really, really fascinating. Also, I saw earlier you had that Gibson. Could you pick that up and tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a Gibson UB3 from the 30s, mid to late 30s. This was actually played by George Formby himself. He owned it, and they used this on his final TV show. There's a great video of it not long before he died. In fact, he used this for about 15 years. The last 15 years of his life, I've got a lot of pictures of him with it. Wow. So it was definitely one of his favorite instruments.
Wow.
So a great piece of treasure.
Yes,
and
sure.
A beautiful yeah, beautiful thing. I have another one. I have another UB3 Gibson, which I'll show you.
Sure.
And this is my online banjo museum. This one was owned by another great British uke player called Tessie O'Shea. In fact, I know there's a great picture of her in the banjo museum, and she played this for most of her film and TV appearances. Got a great photograph of her with it here. This is the night she appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, the same show as the Beatles, which I think is one of the biggest TV audiences of all time. And there she is with this UB3. I think John Lennon is just about touching it as well.
Yeah.
And on the back, she signed it, Day with their favorite boys. So that's kind of a nice thing to have.
That's
again,
incredible.
A beautiful uke.
Oh yeah! Wow, that is cool. It's very cool. So, I guess I'm familiar, with Ludwig's being very popular. The Wendell Hall model, and some of the Gibsons with maybe that head size and the resonator, the flange. Are there some other? Now I've heard of a maker. There might have even been two. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe like Abbott Senior, and a son maybe, or a...
That's right. Yeah, Jack Abbott made them for George Formby. Billy Uke Scott, who's another British player over here, and his son carried on later on. Went back into copying his father's instruments. They were really great. In fact, I'll just pop off the camera for a second and pick one up.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I love this.
There's a Jack Abbott Jr.
Okay.
Banjo uke. another beautiful thing. But for me, the best of them all has to be the Ludwig, because it's just an amazing piece of engineering. I think, I know they're not the absolute favourite for banjo players, but the ukulele banjo, they really got it right. And to me, they are the greatest. This is another model. This was the slightly later with the slots on there, but this is the classic old Ludwig, and the sound of that is just amazing.
Oh yeah.
Too loud for the phone there. But yeah, beautiful instrument.
Oh, that's great. I also am noticing. Well, before I go here, I like Ludwigs honestly, but I like them with a skin head or vellum head, I guess maybe you'd say.
Yeah.
I think it changes the sound quite a bit. They're naturally they cut through really well. They're very bright and have this nice sound. But when people put, at least in my opinion, when you put a really tight plastic head on there and, you know, really thin bridge and all this stuff for a tenor banjo, it can be, you know, there's not much else. It's just really bright and harsh. But I think, I mean, on most of the banjo-leles, banjo ukes, do they have vellum heads, skin heads? Is that a preferred thing?
I only ever used vellum myself, and this is how they were obviously intended to be when they were made, these old instruments.
Exactly.
So I've never got into the plastic heads yet. I know some of the modern manufacturers are using them now, but I've never heard one that really works as well on a banjo uke. I'd love it if someone could come up with a material that gets the same sound, but it hasn't happened yet. So we'll see.
Well, then me and you have that in common. I mean, 90% of the instruments I play have a skin head on them, and that's kind of rare.
Right.
Most people don't do that. It's funny what you said. I totally agree. All these instruments were made. All the engineering, you know, the acoustical engineering revolved around organic soundboard, basically, you know, skin head.
That's
and
right.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. Now I think you guys have a big advantage because the head diameter is so much smaller. It doesn't get as loose, you know.
Yeah, around about 8 inches, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, is that the kind of a typical size? Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we don't need quite so many tension hooks usually on
right.
About 16's plenty on a Ludwig like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. And you know, it's nice you get the top tension hardware so you can adjust them on the fly pretty fast.
Yeah, great piece of engineering actually. You know, the cast bronze shell, the bezel there, everything's perfect. I mean, when you try to put a vellum onto one of these, that's hard work. Everything moves. Shoes want to move, you have to slacken them off from the inside because the thing's probably bent out of shape over the years, you know.
Right. That's great, man. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about you and your career. We talked about how you got started. What was your first big gig, so to speak, or where'd you really cut your teeth, you know?
Well, I started doing gigs when I was a school kid, actually. When I was about 12 years old, I did my first paid gig. I would play at old people's homes, the church fetes, or any little concert that would have me. So I built up my act very gradually all through the years I was a student. And when I left, I went to study music at Oxford University. When I left there, because I'd been doing this all the time, I had an act kind of ready to go. So it didn't take me too long because of that, background. Didn't take me too long to break into the industry. And I started doing hotels and worked my way up cruise ships and then got into theatres. There's a great comedian over here who only died a couple of years ago called Ken Dodd. You may not know of him at all, but he over here quite a big star, stand-up comedian, and he always had support acts on his bill. So I managed to get in with him, and that got me lots of theatre work all around Britain. in the most beautiful theatres. They were always full houses because he's had a huge following. And I would open up the second half of his show with a 20-minute set. And that was a great experience. I did that for years and years. And then got into other kind of variety shows and lots of things like that over here. So it built up gradually. And when I look at it now, you know, over the last sort of 20 years, I've worked with some really great artists and had a good time.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. Yeah, I have actually heard of him. And when he passed away, I think it was a couple of years ago. It actually made headline news. You know, I was happy to see that over here. You know.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about how well known he was over there.
Yeah, probably not to the the average person, but I study this stuff, so I'm a little different. But now you mentioned cruise ships briefly there. Yeah, that's a totally different world, huh? When you're doing that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's fun.
That's a strange gig because I would go on as the cabaret act, you know. So if I'm on a cruise ship, I probably only work 1 or 2 nights a week because I've got different artists every night and the team on board doing their shows. So that's a strange gig because you sit around for several nights and then you work and then you sit around again for another 5 nights and there's nothing to do but eat and drink.
I know. Watch everyone else. You gotta watch your. You gotta work out sometimes, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that. Strange. Yeah, I actually played electric bass on a cruise ship for a summer. I was subbing for a guy between semesters in college, and but the only way to get me on the ship was, it's very short notice. And the agent that contacted me said, "Man, we need you to come out like this week." And the only way to get me there was to, I needed a medical and all this stuff, and there just wasn't enough time. So the way to get around that was giving me like guest entertainer status, like you would have had, and I just remember when I was on the ship, a lot of people, and I'm trying to make friends, I'm 19 and, it's a whole different world. They're the innards of the ship. And I had this badge on. It's blue card status for the Norwegian line is what I was on. And they're like, who's this guy coming in here thinking he's, a guest entertainer? And I'm like, no, trust me, it's not like that at all. I'm not, but I didn't have to do the safety tests. I didn't have to do, all that stuff. I could eat at the nicer restaurant, but I thought, I'm not going to take advantage of any of this stuff because I want to make friends with people. But that was my brief little time on the cruise ship, So that's really cool. So now I know we're talking a lot about the banjo ukulele, but I read a little bit about you here, and I noticed you do play other instruments, right?
Yeah, play obviously the traditional wooden ukulele as well as the banjo version, but also the violin and guitar. Okay. I always use the violin in my act because people. It's a funny thing, people relate to that in a different way. They assume it's more difficult instantly as soon as you pick it up. It doesn't matter what you're playing on it. The violin's clever. The uke, that can't be clever. But I always do the violin as well. A little bit of guitar because it makes I like my act to be a bit of a variety show, really, in itself. I try to do as much stuff as I can just to please as many people as possible in the audience, basically. So always start with the banjo uke. Then I say, well, this is a different kind of ukulele. Then I surprise them with the violin. I usually tuck that out of sight until I've sort of shown them. I don't like to show them everything at once. Let them think they know what I do, and then pick up the violin. Oh wow, a bit of a shock,
Yeah.
And of course, the guitar gives me a chance to do something a little bit more middle of the road, which always helps a bit to get people who are perhaps not so interested. They're not. You can't really expect there to be banjo nerds in the audience. So try and please everybody.
Yeah, not everybody's as cool as me and you, so.
That's right.
No, that's cool. So now, in addition to performing and, playing, do you teach?
I do very little teaching.
Okay.
I have done it, and a
Yeah.
lot of people ask me to do it, and I've been so busy up until the last couple of months with the COVID
Right.
scenario. I've never had time to do a lot of teaching. I do workshops at the uke festivals, because that's become another source of work for the last few years. The ukulele festivals have taken me certainly all over Europe, and that's given me a chance to do some teaching, and I enjoyed it. But I think now that we're in lockdown, as we are at the moment, I'll get some, hopefully get a chance to do some tuition videos. I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, something I do. Also, I've done a little bit of composing the last couple of years. I wrote a piece for ukulele and string quartet. So that was a nice opportunity to do something a little bit different. And that turned out nicely. So I quite enjoyed that. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Now, that just made me think about something. When you were studying music at Oxford, what was your instrument that you made your primary instrument?
Well, yeah, it was always going to be the violin, because that's a tradition. I mean, when you talk about a music degree course, Oxford is, you would think, as traditional as it gets. So I was studying the violin. But also in my spare time, I used to perform with the uke and the banjolele and do my comic songs and everything. And it came to the final year, and my tutor said, when he got to the end of the course, the final year, my tutor said, "What are you going to play for your recital, for your degree recital?" Yeah. And I said, "Oh, I'll do a violin sonata." And he said, "What, you mean you're not going to play the uke?" And I was astounded, because I said, "Well, I didn't think that would be allowed. No one's ever done it before." And he sort of said, "Well, that's a great reason to do it." So I had to check it out with the examiners that it would be okay, and they were fine with it. So I did the first ever ukulele recital for the degree. So that was great. I mean, in fact, it was quite exciting, because it got on the local TV news, and the papers. There was full page in some of the national papers about it, and so that added to the pressure a little bit, but it made it very exciting. So it was not only the first time the ukulele had been used there, it was the first time anyone had done popular music instead of a classical concert. So it was also the first time anyone had asked if they could sing and play at the same time, accompany themselves. Wow. So it was quite out of the ordinary. And I thought, well, this will open the gates now for other people to do the same thing. And I've paved the way for everybody. But as far as I know, 20 years on, I don't think anyone else has done it.
Yeah. That's a great story, man. That's really cool. Yeah, I went to college for music, jazz degree, but I was really a classical double bassist. That's what I played in orchestra and chamber orchestra and all that. And it's funny when you do, when you're into the classical music scene, but you also had this alter ego of banjo playing. Yeah, and it's pretty funny. There were a couple times when I was in this chamber orchestra and in high school where they commissioned a piece, because they knew I played banjo seriously, playing a lot of the Harry Reeser stuff and all this. Yeah. And they thought, wow. So they commissioned a piece for chamber orchestra and tenor banjo. And I got to do that. And so I don't know, it's just fun. Yeah. It's nice to hear that story about you, because it's anytime you
ever spin, when you're playing the stand-up bass, do you ever spin it round? Because they really hate that in the middle of a symphony, I found.
Yeah, you're playing Mahler or something. Yeah, stand on it, like the rockabilly guys. No, but I'm thinking about doing some flames on my bass. I think.
Oh yeah, that looked great.
Oh man, you're too much, man. I feel like I hope one day we get to meet and play together. That'd be a lot of fun. Maybe when all this blows over,
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this has been great. I mean, thanks so much for doing this. I'm sorry about I know we have some connection problems and all that, but I think we've managed to work around it a little bit. But, these
Yeah, we're
days,
doing fun.
yeah, you do what you can, I mean, we're all with the
Yeah,
COVID stuff and all that. We're trying our best here, just to come up with new ways. I mean, the fact that we're even doing this, there's a lot of
yeah,
positives
it's
that have come
great.
out of this,
Good to
so,
see you.
you know,
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
well, hey, would you mind, um, just playing us out with something really just, do your thing for us here.
Yeah, great idea.
Really
Let's
cool.
do that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
thanks again so much, man. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for taking the time out of your schedule, and I hope we can do some more stuff in the future for sure.
Yeah, let's do it. Thanks, Tyler. It's great to see you.
You too, man. Okay, so Andy, take us out.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was talking about George Formby, so I'll play his most famous song, which, although he was a comedian, was actually quite a sentimental song. It's called Leaning on a Lamppost. I'm leaning on a lamppost at the corner of the street in case a certain little lady comes by. Oh me, oh my, I hope the little lady comes by. I don't know if she'll get away, she doesn't always get away, but anyhow I know that she'll try. Oh me, oh my, I hope the little lady comes by. There's no other girl I could wait for, but this one I'd break any date for. I won't have to ask what she's late for. She'd never leave me flat, she's not a girl like that. Oh, she's absolutely wonderful and marvellous and beautiful, and anyone can understand why. I'm leaning on a lamppost at the corner of the street in case a certain little lady passes by. I'm leaning on a lamppost at the corner of the street in case a certain little lady comes by. Oh me, oh my, I hope the little lady comes by. There's no other girl I could wait for, but this one I'd break any date for. I won't have to ask what she's late for. She'd never leave me flat, she's not a girl like that. Well, she's absolutely wonderful and marvellous and beautiful, and anyone can understand why. I'm leaning on a lamppost at the corner of the street in case a certain little lady passes by. I'm leaning on a lamppost at the corner of the street in case a certain little lady passes by.
Wow, Andy, that was great. Thanks, man. Gosh, I love that style. Thanks to all you listeners out there for tuning in with us. Coffee with Tyler. I really enjoy doing this, and it's just a reminder to me, talking to these banjo players from around the world like Andy, just how cool this instrument is, and what a great opportunity it is to get to talk with these cool people that play it. So thanks again. Take care. Until next time.